someone that says and some that a person that through learning in such a type of way that the Yibbonim wanted to be mevatel the person from learning Torah totally, and we said they did so by first aiming at the things that were super rational. And we started saying that by aiming first at the super rational mitzvahs and aiming first at the part of Torah, the emphasis of Torah is godly, so that would eventually stop Yidden from learning Torah entirely and from doing mitzvahs entirely. And we brought the idea concerning the Vart of the Frierdiker Rebbe, that he says that the Yetzer Hara is in agreement and says, learn Torah, but don't make it into a godly thing. So now the Rebbe is going to explain this concept. Ois Daled on page Lamed Aleph. Here, the Indian explanation of this matter is the Nom Razal Chazal said al Pasuk. Says in the Pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Roya Zoinus Abid Hoy. So the Chazal darshan Roya Zoinus, someone that is spending time with Zoinus. So the Chazal play off of the word Zoinus, and they say it's as if you read it Zu Noeh. It's as if saying this is nice. What does that mean? The Chazal say, line 12, anyone who said that this halacha is a nice halacha, and this halacha is not a nice halacha, or a nice Kabbalah that he received from his Rebbe or whatever, he loses, he forfeits the wealth of the Torah. So the Rebbe explained, this means, he also loses that particular halach, that particular part of the Torah that he's saying that it is nice. So obviously the thing that he's saying is not nice. Obviously he has no connection with, so he loses that. But the Rebbe is saying that from the pasuk, from the way the Chazal explained the pasuk, he loses the wealth, meaning the whole entire Torah he loses. He doesn't even retain that part of Torah that he said is nice. So the Rebbe asks, line 14, it's not understood. Since he says that this halacha or this idea in Torah Shbalpeh is nice, and he has a passion for it, he's excited about it. Why does he lose it? Even more so it's not understood. Chazal said, it's a person should always study in a place that his heart desires. Why should a person study in a place that he desires? If he will study and he will review a different Masechta, so it will not remain within him. He will have a problem with retention and keeping it. Why is that so? Because his heart is on his desire. In other words, where's a person's focus? A person's focus is strong on something that he has an interest in. So we see from this that there is a certain type of personal connection that the person is supposed to have with Torah. There are certain parts of Torah that he has a stronger desire for, and that helps his Torah learning. So why do we say that a person says that Shmua zu na, Shmua zu eina na, so then he loses all of it? That explains in line 20, who the idea behind this is, the Chacham of Torah is distinct from all other types of wisdom and science and etc. It's not Torah. Torah on its own is really beyond comprehension. It's impossible to comprehend it. And the reason for that is, like he explains in many other Mamarim, is because it's Hashem's wisdom. The Torah is Hashem's Chachma. Hashem and his wisdom are all one. Just like Hashem is infinite, so too His wisdom is infinite. So it's impossible for a finite human being to grasp the infinite wisdom of Hashem. So how is it actually possible for us to grasp it? The possibility and the reason why the comprehension of Torah exists, why it's possible for us to comprehend the Torah, is only because Hashem wanted that the Yidden should bond with Him through the fact that Yidden bond with the Torah bonds with the Eibush. And he wanted Hashem wanted that this bond that a Yid connects with the Torah, that therefore, through bonding with the Torah, he will bond with Hashem. So the Eibishter didn't want to limit it just to the Nefesh Elokis, that only the Nefesh Elokis is going to have this bond with the Torah and thereby be bonded with Hashem. The Eibishter wanted that this bond should take place also from the perspective of the Nefesh HaBahamis, of the animal soul and the physical body. That is why the Torah, despite its essential state of being incomprehensible, had to come down to deal with the most mundane matters. Line 29, therefore, the Torah traveled and descended from one level to another level until it became enclosed in intellect and comprehension. How come? Top of page Lamed Beis, because through a person down here comprehending the Torah in the most mundane fashion, in dealing with the most mundane topics and physical topics, so the person that's learning, and the person is not just a godly soul, but the person includes also Nefesh HaBahamis in the body, will become joined with the Torah. Yichud Nifla Shein Yichud Kamayu is an unbelievable union and a joining that there's no joining like it, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya right away at the beginning in the Chitas of these days. Moving from this to understood. When the Torah study is not for the sake to bind oneself with Hashem, I am learning Torah, like we said before, the Yevanim were okay that a person should learn Torah with kihi chachmaschem binaschem leini, because it's a very wise and deep topic. So it's another subject that I'm learning because I like to exercise my brain. It's not because of my connection with Hashem. Then it's impossible for a person with such a premise and such a reason for learning Torah. It's impossible for him to comprehend the Torah. Even because the Torah on its own is not really available for comprehension, like we said before. So only if we're focused on the purpose that the Torah was given for, which is to connect with Hashem, then Hashem allows for us to be able to get the Torah, to get what it's about. But if we do not connect with the spirituality, which is the purpose of the Torah, we're only about our own mind, so therefore we miss out on the whole wealth of Torah. It says in line 6, that's why something that says that this Shmuah is pleasing, he also loses that Shmuah, he always also forfeits that Shmuah that he does agree with or he does find pleasing. Since his study is only because it is a pleasing Shmuah, because of the intellect that's in it. His whole focus is in the intellect. And when his focus is on the intellect, he loses the entire Torah. So now he concludes what he said before. That's why the Greeks says they wanted to make you forget the Torah. To make forget that it's the Torah of Hashem. Because that would be a stepping stone that eventually Shaydei's battle close through this will eventually become and nullify the entire idea of the study of Torah, not just the parts of Torah that he likes or understands, etc. Let's learn one more paragraph before we open up questions, because he's going to say in a similar vein, when a person does only those mitzvahs that he can understand according to Seichel, and those mitzvahs are only done because of their Seichel, through that, the whole idea of mitzvahs is lost. Line 13, second paragraph on page Lamed Beis. He says, this is also why the Yevonim wanted to remove them from the decrees of your will. Why did they want to do that? Because one is connected to the other. Beforehand, we said that there's two distinct things. One thing is lashkicham Torah, study Torah, but remove the idea that's Torah, your Torah. Another thing is do mitzvahs, only the rational mitzvahs, and only because of the rational component of it, not because of any godly will that's in the rational mitzvah. Now he's going to link them together. The performance of the mitzvahs, only when they're rational mitzvahs and only in a rational manner, is connected and causes and brings about the forgetting of the Torah. That's be able to make them forget your Torah by days. And through that, by them not performing the mitzvahs in the super rational manner, so that will stop them from the general idea of Torah study. What's the connection between one and the other? So he says in line 16, the idea behind this is it's known by the inspiration down here below. There's an inspiration above. She's similar to this concerning the Torah being drawn down in human intellect. It's that also needs this ordinarily when we talk about my avodah causes a response from above. It's talking about when I have love for Hashem or I do an avodah Hashem, etc. Here, the Rebbe is connecting it with a very interesting thing. We said before that the Torah by itself is way beyond our comprehension. But the Eibishter wanted that we should be able to comprehend it. So he brought it down into human intellect. Atzma, he's l'mayl masad. Though on its own, it's beyond comprehension. Mikol makim yardav and islapsha b'seichel. She's still in all of the standard that became clothed in human intellect. So that we should be able to comprehend it and to join with the Torah with an unbelievable unity. So that itself is an esrus d'leila from Hashem. That is a gift from Hashem to us. What enables and what brings down that gift from the Eibishter to us, that he has this type of connection with us through Torah? It's predicated on, it's based on our showing the Eibishter our interest in connecting with him as well. It says in line 22, the inspiration down here below. That evokes by Hashem the inspiration from above that he should become joined with us through Torah comes when we fulfill the mitzvahs. How come? What's the connection between one and the other? Because through fulfilling mitzvahs, we affect in the physical things a change of the very thing itself. Nasim elikus, that these physical things now become a godly things. Therefore, when we transform the physical into godly, so just like we transform the physical into godly, Hashem brings the godly into the physical with the Torah. Through the inspiration down here below, there's an inspiration from above, the Ruach, I see Ruach, Va'amshech Ruach. A spirit brings another spirit and draws down a spirit. 5 days of toiling. Through this, we affect that the Torah, which is totally beyond comprehension, should come down in intellect and comprehension, top of page Lamed Gimel. So when we do our part to bring godliness into this world, to transforming the physical. So the Eibusher does his part to take the part that's beyond comprehension down to us. That's what says that the Greeks wanted to remove them from the decrees of your will. By days, like we said before, that when we would stop doing the mitzvahs that are super rational, so that would stop us from doing mitzvahs in general. Once we will cease doing mitzvahs, then there will not be an inspiration from down below to the drawing down of the Torah. That's the idea of to make them forget that it's your Torah, that the Torah is a connection with Hashem. By days he is battle close into Limud Torah, and through that the entire idea of Limud Torah will cease. Seems to be l'chora a chiddush over here in this Maimer. I don't recall specifically this expression in many other places that the Rebbe links the two. That he says that the lahavira mechukir tzarnecha is not just a parallel idea to lashkicham Torah sefer. That's the majority of places the Rebbe says. Like we said earlier in the Maimer, it's all about removing the godly from the mitzvahs. It's all about removing the godly from the Torah. But here the Rebbe links it even more so. When you remove the godly from the mitzvahs, so then the godly aspect of Torah becomes removed as well, is missing as well as a result of that, because there is no Isur Sata that should evoke and draw down that Isur Stula. Any questions before we go on? Okay, line 7 on page Lamed Gimel, Ois Hey. Up till now, in the Maimer, he spoke about the problem, what the Yevonim wanted to do, what the Yevonim planned to do, etc. Now we're going to talk about the response, how the Yidden reacted to that, and how the Yidden, by their spiritual avodah, they undid that. The point that the Rebbe is going to say is that the Yidden had a mysterious nefesh of self-sacrifice above and beyond anything that we could technically say, halachically say, that the Yidden were obligated in. And because of that super rational devotion, they defeated the super rational destruction that the Yevonim wanted to do. The Yevonim were fighting against the super rational part of Torah. So the Yidden fought back with a super rational devotion where it made no sense whatsoever for them to do what they did, as we will soon explain in Oisei. This is what the Yidden stood in a war against the decree of the Yevonim, out of self-sacrifice that's beyond reason, totally beyond intellect. And the Rebbe says like this: in many places in Chassidus, it emphasizes that the idea of Mesiras Nefesh, willing to sacrifice one's life for Hashem, that is something that's beyond intellect, beyond reason. It's not rational. Rationally, a person could say, today I may bow down to Avodah Zarah, but then I'll be able to serve Hashem the rest of my life. What benefit does the Eibusher have if I give up my life and not bow down to Avodah Zarah when I have so many more opportunities to serve him afterwards? Or any of the other big three that a person is supposed to give up their lives for. That is a cheshbon in human intellect. But the seichel of Torah says no. There are certain things within the seichel of Torah that says you need to give up your life for. But therefore, that is following the seichel of Torah. The Rebbe is going to explain how what Matisyo and his children, what the Chashmonaim did in that time, was not only going against human intellect, but even against the seichel of Kedusha. That's what he says in line 9. Not only did the Yidden fight against the Yevonim beyond reason and understanding of human intellect, even beyond the intellect of Kedusha. And the Rebbe is going to explain how what the Chashmonaim did, what the Yidden did at that time, was completely not obligatory and he's going to explain different levels in Mesiras Nefesh for this. So first of all, it's important to give some background in the halachas of Mesiras Nefesh. First of all, there's a halacha that a Yid is obligated in the mitzvahs aseh of Kiddush Hashem to give up his life when in private he is being threatened and said that if you don't bow down to Avodah Zarah or the other two, the guy says, I'm going to kill you. So then the Yid has to give up his life. Right? What about if it's in public? In public, it may include other mitzvahs as well. Public means in front of 10 other Yid. Similarly, there's something called Shas Hashmad. When Goyim are trying to convince Yid or to stop Yid from doing Torah mitzvahs, so then even on a minor thing that Chazal say, but even Arkas of the Masani, even about changing their shoelaces to a Goyish type of shoelace, if they're being forced at the pain of death to do that, a person has to give up his life, even though there's no, mitzvahs asay or mitzvahs lois about wearing certain shoelaces. A Yid is obligated to give up his life over there. So the Rebbe is going to explore if what the Chashmonaim did fell into any of the categories of Mesiras Nefesh that we are speaking about over here. So first he's going to go into the big three. The Chashmonaim weren't challenged. The Yidden in the times of Yavon were not being challenged about Avodah Zarah necessarily, Gilui Arayis or Shvichas Damim, the big three. It says, line 11, Sharei Al Pi Din Yesh Makom L'Ayin B'Davar, there's room to, according to halacha, according to dry halacha, one can examine Xeris Hayavonim Yibechlal Advarim Shaleim Nitztavinu Yaharik Val Yavar Hashem Yavar Val Yaharik. Are the decrees of the Yavanim included in those things that a person is commanded to give up his life, or he is supposed to transgress and not give up his life? The whole story with the Yavanim doesn't fall into that category. The decree of the Yavanim was against making a bris milah, observing Shabbos, and Taras HaMishpacha. What was the Taras HaMishpacha issue? It said that any new wife, any new woman that became niskadish to a Yid had to have relations with the governor, with the ruler over there, etc. So the Rebbe says like this: Milah and Shabbos, Hare Milah v'Shabbos heba mitzvah shechal aleim hadid the yaver ba'al yehad. But it's Milah and Shabbos, there's no obligation to give up one's life for it. They fall to the category of if there's a danger to life through bris milah, if there is a case of danger to life through observing Shabbos, doesn't make a difference how that danger is coming about, through a guy or because of an internal danger, because of illness or whatever. A person does transgress and he doesn't get killed. So the Yavanim told them, we're going to kill you if you have a bris milah. The Yavanim told them, we're going to kill you if you're going to observe Shabbos. These are not two things that there is an obligation to give up one's life for. And yet, the Chashmonaim went to war over that. That's part one of the equation of where it seems to be irrational of Mesiras Nefesh, Shaloi al pi tamadas of Kedusha. How about the third thing? How about the idea that any married woman, as soon as she's betrothed, whatever, she has to have relations with the Hegmoy, the idea of having relations with the governor, though concerning immoral relations between man and woman, etc. There's an obligation to give up one's life rather than transgress. So seemingly they had a good reason to fight because of this. They had a good reason to have Mesiras Nefesh because of this. So the Rebbe says an interesting point. The Gemara has a question about Esther HaMalka. The Gemara wants to know, how is it possible that Esther HaMalka, we know as a tzaddik is, how is it possible that she allowed herself to be taken to Achashverosh, and she did not need to give up her life. It's one of the three things. It was Gilui Arayos. So the answer that the Gemara says is Esther Karka Olam Hois. That Esther is considered the floor, the ground. What does that mean? Just like the ground doesn't do anything, so too a woman in a case where she's forced she's not participating in the act, so you cannot hold her liable or you cannot obligate her in the mitzvah of giving up her life if she is not doing an act. She is just lying there, not doing anything. So therefore, the same thing of the case by the Yevonim, that they made the Jewish women have relations first with the governor, etc., there still wasn't an obligation on the women to give up their lives because they were not participatory in the act. And only when one participates in the act, then there's an obligation of the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem by Gilui Arayos. So therefore, the fact that they were willing to give up their lives and risk their lives and so on, this was beyond understanding. This was beyond logic. Then the Rebbe adds another component. If you remember, I mentioned before that if it's a time of when they're trying to eradicate Yiddishkeit, so then a person is not limited just to those three. That anything that is about eradicating Yiddishkeit, a person has to give up his life for. So we know, of course, the Yevonim wanted to stop Yiddishkeit. They wanted to undermine Yiddishkeit. So therefore, what are you telling me? That it's not one of the three, and therefore they should have been willing to transgress rather than give up their lives. But the Yevonim were out to destroy Yiddishkeit. The Rebbe says in line 21, though during the time when they're trying to stop Yiddishkeit, there is an obligation of rather giving up one's life rather than transgressing in all the mitzvahs. So therefore, it was not illogical. It was not against the logic of Torah to give up their lives. The Rebbe says a very basic idea. That's only at the time when they are forcing him to transgress. So if a guy is standing, a Yavani is standing over a person and telling him to be Machal Shabbos, or else he'll kill him, so then a person has to be Machal Shabbos, or I'm sorry, has to give up his life. Or a Yavani is telling him, don't you dare make a bris milah, or else I'll kill you. Yeah, a person has to make the bris milah anyway because Shas Hashma. But that wasn't what the Hashmonaim did. They took it a step further. There's seemingly no obligation to go out and make war in such a situation against a government that makes the decrees. For example, Yidden in the Soviet Union, Hasidim especially, risked their lives for all types of things when it came to Torah mitzvahs. Even though they knew it might land them in jail and worse, it might mean a bullet in the back of their head. And it did actually, for many. But there was no obligation for them to, let's say, join some type of counter-revolutionary movement and fight a war against the communist government and to overthrow them. And the Rebbe goes on the and explaining how the odds were stacked against the Hashmonaim. It was Geborim B'Yad Chaloshim and so on. So from this it's understood. Shamasiris Nefesh Levatel Gzeidus Elu Ilamayla Megamatam V'Das Kedusha. This self-sacrifice that the Hashmonaim went to war to stop these decrees was something in a way that was completely beyond reason, even of Kedusha. Because according to Kedusha, even if you want to say all these mitzvahs a person had to give up their lives for, but that doesn't mean that they have an obligation not just to give up their lives, but they have an obligation to go to war. There is no such type of obligation. And they went to war, so that was a Mesiras Nefesh, Shalamayla Matam Vadas the Kedusha. And as we mentioned, we'll explain, and that is how they challenged and undermined the Yevonim who wanted to challenge and undermine the beyond reason that there is in Torah mitzvahs. Any questions?